Good morning. Thanks so much for joining us for our coffee conversations. We're so excited. We're at the end of 2022. I feel like this year is like completely flown by. And, in the rush of things, we forget to take care of ourselves. So, really excited to have Leah Riley here to talk with us about what is self-care. How do we practice that? What does that really mean? So, we're really excited to have you here, Leah. If you could start us off by telling us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm at Oasis Counseling. I have been here for almost, well, let's see, 4 years, over 4 years now. Been in counseling since 2013, 2014. Been a LPC for 3 years. So yeah, it's been a fun ride, especially through COVID. But
Mhm.
yeah, I really enjoy working with women from all ages. So yeah, yeah, live in
Ma'am,
Southside. So yeah.
what made you get into therapy? How did you figure that was for you?
I went into, let's see, I guess growing up, I people would tell me like, you're such a good mediator, or you listen really well. And I think through college I kind of realized that advertising wasn't for me. Teaching wasn't for me, but I like teaching, and counseling is kind of a derivative of that. Being able to teach, but also build relationships with people while you do that. So yeah, it's a back and forth, so it's good. And I just kind of felt like it was a good fit. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that you said like teaching, right? Because so many people might have a perspective that if you go to a counselor or a therapist, you're just going to lay out all of your deep, dark secrets.
right,
And, it's just going to be something that you saw on like a Lifetime movie. And it's not, right? It's about
right.
learning about ourselves and how to improve ourselves. And so, in doing that, one of those things that we all can take from, that we can all learn from, because I feel like it is a muscle that we'll have to continue to tweak and to build and to change, is self-care, right? And that can be a big word to some, because what does that mean? What does that entail? How much time does that take? So I kind of wanted to delve into that. If you could tell us, what does self-care mean when somebody says you need to practice self-care, or what are you doing for self-care? Could you talk a little to that?
Yeah, so the actual definition of self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. So, so basically, that is all forms of health. So mental, physical, intellectual, sexual, and yeah, I mean, that's all forms of health. And so that may be making sure that you get enough water during the day, eating enough food during the day. Those are the basics, so it starts with basics. And a lot of times that's the things that we forget is the basics. So yeah.
Yeah, like sometimes people think like, oh, I need to plan a 2-week vacation. That's self-care. And that's not necessarily true, right?
Right.
And so what is myth versus um like reality when it comes to self-care? Like I know you gave some examples about making sure we're drinking water every day. Are we eating enough food every day? Those little things. What are some things that are just like, okay, that's not really self-care, and this is what reality looks like, and what how to put that definition into work in your everyday life?
Yeah. So self-care is not the same for everyone. And self-care is not spending a ton of money necessarily. I mean, really, it's hitting the basics. And it is really a lot about figuring out what your individual self-care is, what recharges you. If you get recharged by being around others, you're more extroverted, then that may be great. And then for others, it's recharging with alone time and reading and being able to take a bath, or it really is the basics of figuring out, making sure that you're breathing and you're noticing, okay, I've realized I'm clenching my jaw. I need to breathe. Really taking it back to the the basics of just being a human. Of have I taken care of those things, right? Breathing, going to the bathroom, food, shelter, water, sleep. Those are things that that I think are really that we overlook when we think of self-care. And a lot of times we think, like you said, like a vacation or spending a lot of money or treating yourself, you know, with a new purse or a new car. And, you know, those things are nice, but they don't sustain, you know, long term. And I know with the large population, you know, their health is obviously something that is very, you know, top of mind. And so I think making sure that you're aware that you aren't, you know, you may not be able to do all the things you could, and you can still do some things, right? Making sure you're getting water, making sure you're eating, making sure that things are easy. You know, medication is easy access, like on a cart by your bed or something like that. Making those things easy for yourself.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned getting back to the basics, because I mean, because you could be practicing self-care, but you don't know it, you don't recognize that it's self-care. You know, taking deep breaths or doing things that's healthy for your mind and your body is self-care. It's not necessarily like, because it's not feasible to go on, you know, a 2-week vacation where you're stressed out all the time. Sometimes it makes more sense to, because I'm an introvert, like I have a social battery. So like when I feel myself getting overwhelmed with people, you know that I need to take a step back and just like turn off my phone and not deal with anything. But I mean, sometimes prioritizing that can be so difficult. Like when we get so committed to things and to people and places, it can be very hard to just accept the fact that you're human and you do need self-care. So for those who have issues with prioritizing self-care, what are some suggestions you have for them?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with like some codependency or feeling like we need to meet others' needs first. And I think that that's super common, especially among women, moms, wives, you know, partners. Like that's super common. And I think remembering that, especially in the face of, you know, dealing with your own health issues and your own health, it is really important to take care of your needs first, because in a way that is a health, I guess, a health crisis. I don't want to say it's like a crisis, but that is something that everything else needs to kind of go to the wayside if you are not getting your needs met, right? If you haven't slept, if you haven't eaten, if you haven't taken a deep breath, you know, those kind of things, that everything else, you know, the extras, you know, telling people happy birthday, sending them a gift, those extras need to be second, right? And so the other thing too, I was going to say is I think the core of self-care is really getting in touch with your 5 senses, which is smelling, sight, taste, touch, hearing, those 5 senses of like, when is the last time I smelled coffee and allowed myself to genuinely just enjoy that smell? Or when is the last time I went outside and just took a breath and looked around at the leaves or sat and heard the rain, right? Getting in touch with those 5 senses is really about self-care, because we so much get in our head. We don't get in touch with our body. We don't get in touch with what we're feeling physically. And so I think that that is a really good thing to remember. And people that struggle with that, it's just as simple as, and it takes practice, but people who struggle with that would just think of the 5 senses. Notice, you know, one thing you can see, one thing you can hear, one thing you can touch, one thing you can smell, one thing you can taste, right? And so getting in touch with that can really, it's kind of surprising and sounds simple, but it is actually, oh, okay, I haven't taken a deep breath. I've been having shallow breathing because I'm anxious. I need to fill my belly, not my chest, but my belly with air in order to get oxygen to my body, and taking the time to do that. And those can take seconds, right? So that's what I would think is go back to the basics. When's the last time I checked in with myself? When's the last time I asked myself, how am I? Yeah.
And those are like ways that, I don't know, we talked about this previously, but, you know, implementing those soft self-care moments. because you might not always have the time to, well, I really love coffee, and sitting for coffee always makes me feel good. But, say you're in between appointments, you don't have the time to go here or there, but you need this moment. Being able to find a way to implement something softly can make a huge difference. It's literally like building up to whatever makes it work for you. And it's okay that it changes, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be the same thing, because we change, our situations change, our bodies change, how we feel, our emotions, we grow as people. So our self-care isn't always going to look the same, and that's okay. And it's not a reason to panic. I used to feel like if something wasn't working for me anymore, something was wrong with me, but it's just part of your growth. It's just part of your journey. And then, sometimes when we think of self-care, we think of no conflict, we think of just being, but in life there is conflict, there is stress, and self-care is a way to manage that. However, sometimes we do still have to address these things, right? And so, but we still want to remain the healthiest that we can. So in doing that, my question for you is it possible for someone to talk about a triggering topic that they know, like, this gives me a little anxiety, this makes me a little angry or a little sad? Is there a way for them to address these situations, but also be mindful of self-care and how to kind of balance that situation?
Yeah. So I think just being, yeah, I mean, it depends on too, like the situation, and if it's family, and obviously Christmas is coming up and New Year's, and being around family. And I think just maybe educating family on what is difficult for you to talk about regarding health, and what decisions you're making for your health, chemo, radiation, whatever, but that you appreciate people respecting your choice and that your independence. And if you need help, you would appreciate them stepping in and helping you, right? But that kind of laying it out like, hey, right now in this journey in my life, this is hard for me to talk about. And I can talk about it. And I need you to just be aware of that, right? And so educating your family, friends, this is where I'm at. Today's a hard day. Today's a sad day. Today's an okay day, educating them before you even get into this, the difficult topic that you may be talking about, just letting them know where you're at. Today's a hard day and I'm really having a hard time. That's okay. Very understandable, very normal. And of course, like, you should be allowed to have that. And you are. And so I would say before those different, seeing family that may not know your diagnosis, seeing friends, or that you're having to inform them and they don't know, preparing yourself before. So asking yourself, is this going to be hard for me? Okay, yes, it will. Okay, why? Well, I feel like a burden, or which I hear a lot with Forge clients, and just clients that struggled with this diagnosis. I feel like I'm going to be a Debbie Downer, or that I'm going to be really depressing, and it's the facts. You're informing people of facts, and it's not, you're not trying to change the mood or whatever. And so letting yourself know that, look, I'm not a burden. This is the facts. I have no control over my diagnosis, right? I mean, having the diagnosis, and this is where we're at, right? Like, this is life. This is a trial, and I'm going through it. And this is, we're all humans. And what happens when our loved ones go through trials? Well, we go through it with them, right? Or we're aware of it and we know that they can happen. And so I would say preparing yourself first. Okay, I'm about to see a lot of people. It's going to be overwhelming. They're going to ask questions. They may not know what to ask or how to act. And just letting them know, look, it's okay. Or if you're like, I'd really like to not talk about it today. I'd really like to just have Christmas or, this meal and not talk about that, if that's okay. And you can say that in a nice, calm tone and make eye contact and let them know, hey, I'm okay. I want to take a break for a little while and not think about that. And so preparing yourself, and then afterwards, after the event or seeing family, friends, afterwards, checking in, how was that? Man, and thinking, okay, checking in, well, my body's tense, so I'm tense. That was hard. Or that was really painful to have to tell them, and allowing yourself to grieve and be sad if you are, because that's not going to last forever. You know, you're not going to grieve forever that interaction, but it is okay to be sad and just say, you know, it is sad that this is what I'm dealing with and what my family's dealing with. And you're still fighting and you're still going, right? And so that's the biggest thing is, look, I'm in this to fight and you guys are alongside me, right? And those are people that you trust, obviously, and that you feel comfortable sharing this information with. Now, if there's people that, you know, you're not as close with, then, you know, maybe a little awkward, but don't feel like you have to overshare, right? So I don't know. I would say before and after is very important of self-care, checking in how you are physically, emotionally, and what do you need? Well, I don't want to see anybody for a day. Okay, that's great. That's fine. I don't want to see anybody. I want a break. I want to be alone. I want to watch movies, or I need to distract myself because this is hard and I need to go get some coffee or a meal with someone. That's great too. But just being able to, it's hard to know sometimes what we need, but slowing down and asking ourselves is going to be really important before and after those hard situations or hard events. Yeah.
And, you know, I love so much of what you said. And in paraphrasing, basically, we want to implement healthy boundaries. Like, we want to think ahead of things that trigger us. Like, if talking about my breast cancer diagnosis, or talking about just big things that are happening in my life, or just the little things that impact me in a big way. Implementing those boundaries are the types of conversations that you feel like you're ready to have, checking in with self first. And then if you feel like you're ready for it and it happens, and then you realize like, whew, I wasn't actually ready for it. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. And now I'm feeling this way, giving yourself grace, because I mean, you did what you could. And now you're here in this space that you didn't think you'd be in, because initially you're like, I think I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, like, we can talk about my diagnosis a little bit, but then afterwards you felt a little bad, and now you're like, oh, I shouldn't have talked about it. You know, now I'm a Debbie Downer, and now I'm saying like, no, like, giving yourself grace because you're human. This is your life experience, and people don't ask questions if they don't want the answers, and it's okay to go through these emotions, because we're all human. No matter how much therapy you go through, everybody has feelings. Everybody can give themselves that grace. It's just harder at times. That's kind of what I took out of everything that you said. And I want to say you put it very beautifully. So thank you for that. So in life, and I don't know, you know, if I'm wording this correctly, but, you know, in life, we change. In life, you know, we develop into different people, our interests change. Like I said, our bodies change. And particularly with breast cancer, I mean, those things change as well, right? Like, I'm sorry, hold on one second. And so we change, our interests change, our bodies change. So our self-care will change. What our needs will change, our structure will change, where we live, things we have access to and things that we don't. What are some, and our needs change, our wants change. So what are some things that can help us kind of cope and navigate through those changes in our life? So our self-care changes. Like, we've gotten used to this. So, well, I know going to the coffee shop helps me calm down, or I know taking a walk to the park helps me calm down. But now I live in a rural area and there's no park, or there's no coffee shop. So when a person is in a situation like that, what are some tips that you have for them in developing a new self-care plan?
Yeah. I would say trying to get creative, right? Like, again, getting in touch with those senses. What helps you get in touch with the five senses? And being present. What gets you out of your head? And if you don't know what I mean by getting out of your head, but if you're thinking a lot and not really feeling and feel kind of numb, you know, what can get you in touch with those five senses? And that may be as simple as going outside, right? Or reading something, watching a show that you enjoy. But again, this is all, you know, like you said, our needs change and what we want and like changes. What are our abilities as we age and get older and have health changes, like those, our abilities are going to change. And so being okay with grieving the loss of what we used to could do, and allowing ourselves to just be, you know what, that really sucks. I can't run 5 miles like I could, or walk around the park like I could. And I can still sit in the park and, you know, let myself listen to the birds and things like that. But again, if there's not those options, getting creative, maybe getting into therapy, you know, asking, helping, you know, having someone cater, you know, your self-care plan to you, having someone help you with that. Or asking a friend or someone that you trust, like, what do you do to take care of yourself? Like, I'm trying to experiment. And it may be that, that those, you know, as we change, we realize, ooh, that's not what I like. That's not a self-care thing. That doesn't recharge me. It's really a trial and error thing. So it's not going to be perfect, and you're not going to know. It's all about pivoting, right? Like, ooh, okay, I'm going to pivot. You know, I'm not ruining anything or making myself, you know, doing anything to make myself worse. Like, I know that this isn't something that I want to do now, whether it's, you know, spending time with other women that have breast cancer, or which I know, like, Facebook cancer groups can be really helpful, and they can be really hard. Right. And so knowing when to pull out of that and knowing when to insert. Okay. If you're dealing with, you just got out of radiation and you're feeling pretty down for chemo, you may not want to get in that. You may not want to, you know, you may not want to spend the time to do that. So that's okay. But yeah, I would say, the biggest thing, for lack of resources or just not the availability, is just going outside, taking a warm bath, you know, cold or warm drinks, making a meal or having someone make a meal, or ordering some food that you like. Those, just the senses, you know, touching or having like something soft, whatever texture you like, something soft, something sharp, not sharp, like to cut yourself, but like something, you know, bumpy or something like that. But having those, like a self-soothing toolkit with the 5 senses, can be helpful, whether you like to look at photos of your family or the mountains, or things like that. But you can actually make like a bag or a box of like a self-soothing toolkit for each sense, you know, put some coffee beans in there, or something like that. But that, with whatever you have, that can be helpful, to have around and have in your car or at home. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you take your 5 senses with you wherever you go,
Right.
you know? So even if you're away from resources, even if money is tight, you know, you still have self.
Right.
And so being in touch with that can kind of help direct you as to where you need to go. Leah, I have enjoyed this coffee conversation. I could go on for this for a long time,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to. So before we end, did you have any final thoughts for our viewers and listeners that you wanted to leave them with?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think just the amount of respect I have for all of you. I know I don't know you personally, but the amount of respect that I have for all of you and the clients that I see from Forge, but even clients just that have dealt with cancer, is huge. You know, you guys are really an inspiration, and I know you may not feel like you have a choice, you know, but again, you're an inspiration to those of us who haven't experienced that. And you're still doing life, right? Like, remembering that I'm still doing it. Like, I'm still getting up, and even if I'm not getting up, I'm here, I'm alive, you know. And so I don't know, I just want to share thanks for just fighting and being a survivor, and very much respect, and very much respect for you guys, and just appreciation for coming to Oasis too, if you've had a counseling appointment here, for being able to take that step into vulnerability with therapy. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being there for our clients. You don't know how
Yeah.
much We appreciate and value y'all. And I love that people are taking more advantage of this. They recognize that I need some help kind of talking through my feelings and understanding self. So I just appreciate, we all appreciate, whether it's our clients, our partners, Forge itself, like we're very grateful to have such an amazing group of professionals who are able to provide that resource and that safe space for our clients. So thank you. And Leah, thank you for participating in our coffee conversations. And we just look forward to many years of partnership.
Yeah, of course.